name is Tim Taylor with Big T Texas Realty. Welcome. I'm at a house here in Fort Worth that I have for sale, and we're out today doing an inspection. So let's take a look around the property. I'll just kind of point out some of the things that an inspector looks for, things that may help you when you're ready to sell your home to kind of address before you get it listed. So let's just take a kind of a quick look. I'm not an inspector. You know, obviously an inspection will be more in-depth, and we always recommend to buyers to make sure that they have, you know, the house inspected before they put a before they go forward with the contract. So, you know, as a seller, these are the things that you want to fix, you want to address before selling. As a buyer, you definitely want to get a house inspected so you know what you're getting into. So I'm just going to flip the camera around here just a little bit. You know, kind of just starting looking, you know, on the outside of the house, some of the common areas. It's important to have proper drainage. Okay, many houses have guttering now. So if you have guttering, like this house does, make sure that your downspout is properly secured to the wall. Make sure you've got a sill plate down there at the bottom, or deflector plate, to let the water run off. This obviously goes onto a driveway, so it's super easy to drain off. But if it goes into a flower bed, you want to have that in there so it doesn't knock all your mulch and everything else out. You know, you want to take a good look at your foundation. You want to look at the corners of your foundation. This house has been built very well. Sometimes you have some cracking and chipping that you'll want to address. You know, cosmetic things like, you know, caulking around your, you know, like your garage doors, things like that. This is pretty well intact. It's a little weathered, but everything looks pretty solid with it. No gaps. No gaps in your wood here for, you know, insects and things to get into. So let's kind of take a look around here to the front. You've got, you know, an irrigation system here. These are, you know, raised sprinkler heads for bushes, for hedges. Sometimes as your hedges develop and grow, you know, those become a little bit low for what you're trying to water. So sometimes you have to adjust the height on those. Not a huge thing, but, you know, it's kind of the attention to detail. This has LED up lights for the nighttime. Those save on a lot of electricity. If you've got regular bulbs, you know, it's probably worth changing those out to LED so that you can save a little bit of money on, save some costs on your electricity bill. Again, you just want to check these lights. Sometimes there's gaps around there where the electrical is exposed. Inspectors are going to check all your GFCI circuits there to make sure that they trip appropriately. Again, those all look good. The brick, everything on this house, it's a relatively a newer build. It's not new. It's built in 2014, but it's not very old. One of these LED lights here, you can see, has a little bit of moisture in the top. So either that's not working or it's getting close to not be working. And again, you can see what I mentioned a minute ago. Here's proper drainage, okay? So you have your downspout on the side of the house. It comes down, and then they've got an extension added to it here that runs it out across the sidewalk. And then you can see the splash plate there at the end. That's the right way to do it. Again, another downspout here, and the trick of this is you don't want water standing around your house. Water around the foundation of the house equals problems. That can cause cracking and shifting inside the house. And again, this is a newer home, so I don't really expect to see anything that really just glaringly stands out. You know, cosmetically, you're always going to have some blemishes here and there, but an inspector is going to ensure, like I said, all the GFCI circuits work appropriately. There's another one there. Make sure the sprinkler and the irrigation system's working appropriately. If you're buying a house in the off months where that's not running, who knows what happens during the winter. If it's not winterized correctly, you can have cracked pipes and all types of things happen to it. So again, they're going to run that. They're going to test all the zones. They're going to take a good look at it. And we have another uplight here. You can see this one. It's kind of fogged up. It may or may not work. And again, an inspection, you know, is for your benefit. It doesn't mean that every one of these items have to be addressed. It just means that you're aware of what you're buying. Again, you can take a look here. There's another downspout, and you can see it's got the splash plate there that allows it to exit appropriately. And it looks like this customer's obviously had, you know, inset control out here. They got Romex boxes, so that's always good as well. You know that they've taken good care of making sure that don't have, you know, infestation, rodent infestation and things like that. And again, the foundation, nice and solid. You don't see any cracking in the corners. No cracking here in the corner of the brick. It's all sealed up very, very well. The windows look good. The inspector's going to take a really good look around the perimeter of the window. Make sure that you don't have any openings or any cracks in your caulking. And again, this is a very quick pass. So, you know, drainage, huge. Make sure you got proper drainage around the property. Caulking around your windows, your foundation. Make sure those things are addressed. You got cracks in your concrete, cracks in your driveway. You want to seal those up. Water and cracks in concrete don't mix. When you have water entering a crack in a concrete, you can better believe that it's going to crack open and spread further. Okay, so inside the home, some of the other areas to take a look at, you know, cosmetically, you know, they'll take a good look at your crown molding, make sure there's no separations. Oftentimes you'll see some shifting and cracking. Again, this house, I've already looked it over. I don't see anything anywhere in the home that shows any signs of, you know, major shifting where it would cause a cosmetic blemish. Inspectors are going to look at your windows. They're going to make sure they're not binding. They're going to make sure that they open freely. They operate as expected. You know, you'll come in, take a look at a house, you'll like it. You may open a window or two, but you don't go around and check every single window. So again, that's something that will be looked at to make sure that every window is operating the way it should. Make sure there's no defects in the window. They're going to test all of your light switches, all your outlets. They're going to put a little plug-in in your outlet to make sure that it operates the way it needs to, that it's functional. One, if it's on a GFCI, make sure that, you know, anytime you have like a wet area, like a kitchen bar or a bathroom, these plugs are pigtailed into a GFI breaker. So if they get wet, they're going to trip, and they're designed to do that. An inspector is going to run the dishwasher. A lot of people don't think about that, but they're going to run the dishwasher. They're going to run your sink. They're going to look underneath the sink. They're going to make sure there's no leaks in any of the pipes. They're going to run the disposal, make sure it's operating the way it needs to. They may even put a meter on there to make sure the disposal is operating at the efficiency that it's expected. They're going to run your oven. They're going to run the microwave. They're going to look at it inside and out. If a refrigerator comes with a house, they're going to check the refrigerator. So, you know, in the kitchen, it's pretty in-depth, right? So where all your appliances are, your GFCIs, Your cooktop, they're going to turn the cooktop on. They're going to look at each one of those rings to make sure they all work appropriately. Same thing for your bathroom areas. They're going to test the toilets. This house is on a septic system, so they're going to take a really good look at that. They're going to check your wiring, or say your piping behind the toilet, your water lines, make sure that they're not leaking. Make sure the toilet bowl is filling back up appropriately. They're going to look at all your faucets, turn them off and on, make sure no leaks. And again, like the kitchen, they're going to go underneath the sink and they're going to take a really good look at your connections under there. Again, sometimes these things just get overlooked during the purchase of a home. You can see here they have had a dryer vent, but they have cut away some of the sheetrock. So, this is obvious to the naked eye to see, but again, it's something that an inspector is going to look at thoroughly and make sure that there's no issues with that. They'll test all your doors, your sliding doors, make sure there's no binding on the doors, make sure they operate as expected. They're going to look at your even in the closet, they're going to take a look at everything, make sure everything's structurally okay, make sure that none of the shelving's loose. Again, some of this may be common sense, but other items, they just get missed when you're walking through a home. Again, not to be redundant, bathrooms, they're going to test the sinks, they're going to test the GFCIs, they're going to run the shower. They're going to test the shower head, make sure it operates the way it needs to. They're going to test the hot water to see how long it takes for the hot water to get hot, what temperature the hot water is. They're going to look at your bathtub. Again, they're going to look for any issues around the tub from a caulking perspective, your faucets, drainage. How long does it take to drain the bathtub? How long does it take to drain the sinks? These things are all analyzed very carefully. Oftentimes they will put a temperature gauge up at your vents to make sure that the temperature coming out, both on the heat and on the cool, both will be tested to make sure they're reaching the adequate temperature. Again, more structural and more from an operative perspective, the inspections are. They're not going to analyze the carpet or the padding under the carpet. Okay, they're just going to test for more functionality type items to make sure the home can do what it's designed to do, right? So your kitchen, your appliances, that they're up to snuff and that they operate the way they need to. If you got a gas fireplace, does the igniter work correctly? If it's a wood-burning fireplace, they're not going to be able to test like gas and things like that they would on a gas fireplace, but they're going to look at the insert to make sure the integrity of the insert's good. I go to many homes and the inspector will find that the actual insert in there, one of the panels is cracked. Okay, these inserts, I believe some of them are in individual pieces and you can replace just one side versus the whole thing. I'm sure they vary house to house, but that will be something that they find. They may find that the chimney flue has a lot of soot in it. You could have had birds nest in it. We've seen that as well, where the chimney's missing a cap to it, and they will actually have to go in there and have somebody come in and remove any birds or insects, bees, mud daubers, things that get in there. Again, coming out to the back, much like the front, drainage will be looked at. There are GFCI circuits on the back here of the house. Those will be checked. Your condensate drain for the HVAC system, we'll make sure that there's no clogs in the line there. okay, because that's your emergency drip. So if the HVAC, which is in the attic in this house, if that starts to sweat or it leaks, then you know it's going to be drained out outside. And they usually put those in front of a window so that if you see them dripping, you know you got another issue going on. So that's why those drain plugs are usually put in front of a window. And again, you know, looking at the outside, taking a good look at the foundation, looking at any of these gaps up here, you can see there's a little bit of a gap between the wood soffit and the brickwork, and that too can sometimes be problematic, you know, having insects and things able to get in there. So that's looked at very carefully as well. You might, you know, on something like this, it could just be a recommendation from a inspector to just put some more caulking in there and seal it up. Something very easy a homeowner can do. Not a huge deal. And remember, you know, if you're a seller, inspection reports, even if you got a brand new house, they're going to find something. There's always going to be recommendations on there. Sometimes they're just that, a recommendation to things that are more, you know, I don't want to use the word serious, but more matter to the fact, like a plug doesn't work, right? It's black or white. It just doesn't work, so it needs to be replaced or fixed. So as a seller, you don't need to fix every single one of the items on the list. I always tell my sellers that it comes down to, you know, if it's operational, fix it, right? Do the right thing, fix it. You know, if you've got a little bit of an area and landscape that's not finished, again, that's something that, you know, a buyer can do when they move in. That's not something that needs to be fixed. Again, it's all part of the negotiations. That's why working with a realtor is important, to make sure that you're negotiating with the other party appropriately. Make sure that you're not spending a lot of money that you don't have to. So again, the outside of the house looks great. The HVAC system, this is something that will be looked at in depth. They'll make sure that, you know, the return lines and the outgoing lines, all that's tested and it's cooled as expected. The pressure is expected. We'll often see that these might need like a little recommendation of a top up on Freon. You know, is there a leak? It could be a very small leak. May not be a leak at all. Those things will all be looked at and will be explained. This is the pump that pumps air into the septic system. You know, when you have these, you want to make sure you remove that concrete block. You want to make sure there's no ants and other things around there. You know, an inspector is going to take a look at this. They're going to open it up. They're going to come in here and they're going to look at it. This one's very, very clean, as you can see. But I've opened these up to the point where you can't even see that motor, and it just kills it. So that's something to keep an eye on. All right, there's a little bit of a hole here. You know, it's no big deal. You just put a little bit of soil in and fix it, but you don't want to have anything like that to where water can stand around your foundation and cause you issues. Again, going back to the septic system, you know, this has a ability to test it. You can make sure that the audible alarm's working. It has an audible alarm and it also has the light on the top. I can tell you a lot about that because I have a septic system and my audible alarm went out and only the light came on. Well, if you're not outside and, you know, looking at it, you would never know that you've got an issue with your septic. And oftentimes with mine, there's just a little air hose that's on the outside that will come off. So it can be something very simple. But if you're not putting air into your septic system, you're going to have issues. These are the lids that service the system. So you have 3 different chambers on this one. It's aerobic. So it has pop-up sprinklers in the yard that discharge the you know, the water after it's gone through the 3-stage process in the septic system. It's, you know, virtually neutralized at that point. It doesn't smell. You have chlorine usually in the systems that you have to make sure you maintain. A lot of counties, you know, cities, wherever you are, will have, you know, will require you to have a service agreement on there. if you're in a HOA, it may be mandated as far as some of the, you know, bylaws to make sure that the CC&Rs, to make sure you have it maintained on a regular basis. So again, you know, you're looking at all your guttering back here, looking at the chimney up there. You can see there's a top on that chimney. Make sure it's free from any debris. They're going to look at the roof. If they see any issues on the roof, they're always going to recommend that you have, you know, a roofer come out and do a further inspection. And that goes to say, you know, with anything that they see in the house, okay? So if something's off, you know, they see that there's issues with the GFCI, they're going to say, hey, we recommend you have a licensed certified electrician come out and take a look to verify what's going on. An inspector is not somebody who's going to figure out where the issue is, you know, why it's not working. They're just there to say, yes, it works or it doesn't work. These are their findings. There's your downspout here in the corner with your splash plate there at the bottom. Now, this is not bad by any means, but you can see here there's a little bit of chipping on the foundation. Usually when I look at these, they're massive chips, like you may miss the whole corner. So you want to make sure that that's sealed up and you don't have any other issues with it down the road. Again, that's very minor. It's just very barely chipped. You have another section over here that's kind of missing. So you want to make sure that you fill that in, whether you're selling or not. Again, the caulking around the window looks good. No cracks. Again, you don't see any types of cracks in the outside of the house. Foundation looks good. Sometimes you'll see foundations here, you'll see this is exposed appropriately, but sometimes you'll see where the soil is up over the concrete slab and it's actually going onto the bricks. And that poses an issue because, you know, there are weep holes here. You can see right here, there's one, this hole there. Those are weep holes for the brick. And if you fill your dirt up, or, you know, you don't have proper drainage and the soil moves towards your foundation and those get clogged up, you can have issues. And then you have your satellite dishes. I'm not a huge fan of having satellites mounted on your shingles. I'd rather them be mounted to the side of the house so you don't run any risk of leaks. So again, that's something an inspector is going to look at carefully, make sure that those screws that are going into the decking of the roof or have caulking around them, something that's sealed them up, where there's not going to be any issues. Again, this one's got a downspout here, doesn't have a splash plate. So, you know, an inspector may look at this and write on the report, hey, recommended to have a splash plate here to keep water away from the foundation. And that really will be the gist of the report. And you'll see a lot of different things like that, a lot of recommendations. So somebody, you know, who's not used to looking at inspection reports can look at one and go, wow, there's just so many issues with the house. Well, they're not necessarily issues. They're just recommendations. And again, there's not one house that I've ever sold, you know, none of the houses that I've had, or probably even that you've had, that you can say that there was 100% just nothing you would need to do to it. There's always something small that you could recommend to somebody. These ceiling fans out here, ceiling fans never do well in Texas in the summer months, right? These fan blades bow, so they may wobble. It might be something else on the inspection report we see quite often. Change the fan blades on your fan. Again, that's something a seller doesn't need to do for a buyer that they're buying a house. It's not brand new. If the fan works operationally, there's electricity to it, the light works, then, you know, again, that's something that the buyer can do. And as a buyer, you may not expect the seller to replace that or to fix it. Okay, that kind of covers a little bit of the outside. Let's go back on in. I think I've kind of touched on all your big pieces. You know, you're gonna see when people move out of a house, right? This house is vacant. You know, they've left the wires there for the next person to come in. An inspector may call that out and just say, put a faceplate on the wall where the wires come out. Really, it's more cosmetic than it is really anything else. So I hope you find that helpful. You know, as a realtor, we show up for inspections. My team shows up for inspections. We show up for the appraisal process. Not a lot of realtors do that. We like to make sure that, you know, I'm the listing agent for this home, so I want to make sure I get ahead of the curve and understand what the inspector's finding, whether it's something that's merely cosmetic or recommended versus, you know, well, we got an issue. We got 3 plugs that aren't working appropriately. You know, we think it's a GFCI. Oftentimes the inspector's not going to definitively tell you, yes, it is an issue with the fuse. They're going to say, have an electrician come out here and take a look at it. Okay, so then the buyer at that point can call and have an electrician inspect further, or they can ask the seller, hey, would you address this and make sure it fixed and make sure the work's done by a licensed electrician, at which time the seller can either agree or not agree. If they agree, they have the work done, and then they show proof to the buy agent and the buyers that work was performed by a licensed electrician, and it's now in operative function. So again, I'm kind of picking on one thing, but inspectors really are just here to make sure that the person buying the house really knows what they're getting. Make sure that there's not going to be any major underlying issues with the home. You don't want to move into a brand new home or a home that's, you know, not necessarily brand new, but only a few years old, 10 years old, whatever it is. And once you're into your new home, find out that, you know, you've got some major issues. You know, you have termites behind the wall, for example, and that's going to cause a lot of things, you know, to happen structurally to your home that may not present themselves for 3, 5, 10 years down the road. So you really want to know as a buyer that you're getting something very, very solid. As a seller, you want to make sure that your buyers are getting, you know, your home in good condition. You don't want to have any lawsuits or things like that down the road, especially if you put on your seller's disclosure notice. You always want to make sure that on that seller's disclosure notice, you're disclosing everything that you know about that home. Okay, if you feel like, well, you know, we had a leak, but we addressed it. It wasn't a big issue. It just caused a little bit of damage, but it's all been fixed by the insurance company. You still have to disclose that. Okay, and a lot of people get very confused with that. But if you have had, like I did, I had an HVAC system in the end of the house that I never went to, leak, and the drainage was clogged, like we looked at outside a minute ago. And I went into the spare room one day and my whole ceiling was literally hanging down because there was water in there. It had dripped and gone through the sheetrock, and it really just made a heck of a mess. So it was all fixed by the insurance company. If you went in there today, you would never know that any of it happened, but I still have to disclose that did that happened, and it did occur, and then I had a insurance claim on there to fix it. So disclose everything. That is what I'm trying to say. Long story short, disclose everything on your seller's disclosure notice. Well, I hope you found this useful. I will have other videos that will come out, so please stay tuned, and thank you for joining me today.